Welcome to Pain in the Grass, the official Lawn Pride podcast, where we dig deep into the real problems hiding in your yard. From weeds to grubs to mystery brown spots, we've got the dirt. Let's grow better together.
Imagine opening your company's monthly newsletter to an employee spotlight.
Right. Usually a good thing.
Exactly. Usually a good thing.
Yeah.
Only instead of highlighting, a top performer, this profile introduces you to someone who is actively dismantling the entire organization from the inside.
The absolute worst hire you could make.
Yes. Just an employee who drains all your resources, sabotages the foundation, and then, and this is the crazy part, eventually invites an entire network of accomplices to help burn the building down.
It's a great analogy for what we're talking about today.
It really is. Today, we are jumping into a really fascinating brief from Lawn Pride of North Charlotte. It's titled, "The Japanese Beetle, North Carolina's Most Destructive Lawn Pest."
And it is definitely destructive.
Oh, for sure. So our mission for this deep dive is to really understand the sophisticated two-stage tactical warfare that this specific pest wages on your yard.
Because it really is warfare.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're going to explore this bizarre biological paradox of why the healthiest lawns are actually, ironically, the most vulnerable.
Yeah, that part always surprises people.
And then we'll break down the precise science of why timing, literally just timing, is the only thing that separates a minor bug problem from just total property devastation.
That framing from the source material is incredibly effective, I think, because it immediately shifts our perspective.
How so?
Well, we tend to view lawn care as this straightforward, linear process, right? Like, you put in the effort, you provide water, you add nutrients, and boom, you get a thriving green space.
Right, a simple input-output situation.
Exactly. But the Japanese beetle actually weaponizes that exact effort against you. The methodology of this insect is, it's almost structural in its efficiency.
I want to emphasize right at the top for everyone listening, whether you are, a weekend warrior gardener who tests your soil pH obsessively every week.
We all know someone like that.
Right. Or if you're just someone who wants decent curb appeal so the HOA stays off your back, understanding the mechanics of this pest is just absolutely essential.
It really is.
Because it provides this masterclass in how small, seemingly invisible vulnerabilities can systematically collapse a thriving biological ecosystem.
It forces a total reevaluation of what a healthy environment actually looks like beneath the surface, because the warning signs are rarely what a homeowner intuitively expects to see.
Okay, let's unpack this. To figure out how to, fire this terrible employee, we first have to look at its resume. We need to understand its specific skill set.
Right, what makes it so good at its job?
Exactly. So the brief from Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, they categorize the Japanese beetle under the official title of Lawn and Landscape Destroyer.
A heavy title.
Very heavy. And under its likes section, it lists warm, sunny conditions, feeding on grass roots, and devouring the leaves of ornamentals, shrubs, and trees.
Oh, a pretty broad diet.
Yeah. And then under dislikes, it lists deep root systems, preventative treatments, and professional care. But the source points out this massive, ironic twist.
The paradox we mentioned.
Yes. Their absolute favorite target, the environment they seek out above all else, is a well-watered, perfectly healthy lawn. It's like a corporate saboteur who doesn't bother with failing companies. They infiltrate the most successful ones to just drain their abundant resources.
What's fascinating here is that biological preference. That's the core of the paradox. When you analyze human efforts to cultivate the quote-unquote perfect suburban lawn, you have to look at what we are actually doing to the soil profile.
We're basically setting the table for them.
We really are. We run these automated sprinkler systems that ensure abundant, consistent moisture right in the top few inches of the dirt.
Right.
And we apply fertilizers that push rapid green growth. And that often results in these soft, succulent, incredibly nutrient-dense roots. We are meticulously engineering a buffet.
So we are essentially farming grubs without realizing it.
Exactly.
We're prepping the soil to their exact specifications.
By optimizing the environment for the turf grass, we inadvertently just roll out the red carpet for this specific pest. A heavily hydrated, manicured lawn offers an endless, easily accessible, food supply.
So the insect doesn't even have to work hard to survive.
No, not at all. The homeowner has already done all the heavy lifting of resource concentration.
Which completely explains why they don't bother with, like, the neglected dry patch of dirt down the street.
Right, why would they?
Exactly. Why target a bankrupt company when you can hit a thriving one? But that biological preference creates a secondary problem because the initial damage is incredibly deceptive.
It really is.
It masquerades as an environmental issue. A homeowner sees a problem, assumes it's just a watering issue, and completely misses the fact that the invasion has already begun.
The visual trickery is highly effective, and that brings us to the methodology of the invasion itself. The source material breaks this down into two distinct phases.
Right, the two-stage warfare.
Exactly. Stage 1 is an entirely covert underground operation.
The brief explains that long before you ever see a single metallic green beetle flying around your yard, they are living out of sight, right inside your lawn, as grubs.
Hidden completely in the dark soil.
Yeah, and they just continuously feast on the roots of your grass. This feeding frenzy physically severs the plant's ability to uptake water and nutrients.
Which is devastating for the plant.
Total starvation. And the visible result on the surface is that you start seeing these thinning, brown patches appearing across your lawn.
The grass is essentially starving and dehydrating in place, despite being surrounded by damp soil.
Right, because the connection is gone.
Exactly. The vascular system connecting those green blades to the subterranean moisture has just been physically destroyed.
But wait, if all of this is happening, like, an inch below the surface, how are you supposed to even catch it before the damage is irreversible?
That's the challenge.
Because think about the typical homeowner's psychology here. You look out the window, you see a brown patch in your otherwise vibrant green lawn. The immediate logical response is going to be, oh, it's been hot. That spot is drying out. I just need to run the sprinklers a little longer.
You see dry grass, you add water. I mean, it is a perfectly reasonable deduction based on the surface evidence.
But if the roots are chewed off and literally gone, watering that brown patch accomplishes absolutely nothing.
Then nothing at all.
The plant's vascular tissue is severed. You are just making wet dirt while the grass continues to die right on top of it.
And you end up wasting time, money, and water treating a symptom while actively ignoring the underlying disease.
Which is so frustrating.
It is. But the source text outlines these physical warning signs that bypass the visual trickery. You actually have to physically interact with the lawn to diagnose it.
Okay, so what do we look for?
Well, if you walk across those brown patches and the ground feels spongy under your feet, that is a primary diagnostic indicator.
Spongy like walking on a thick gym mat.
Yes, exactly like that. The soil loses its firmness because the structural integrity of the root system holding the earth together has just been consumed.
Oh, wow.
And even more telling is the pull test. If you grab a handful of that thinning brown grass and give it a tug, and it lifts up easily from the dirt like a loose piece of carpet,
that's awful.
it means you have a severe grub infestation. There is simply nothing anchoring the plant to the ground anymore.
That is a deeply unsettling visual. Just rolling up your lawn like a rug because the entire foundation is gone.
The physical disconnection is absolute. And furthermore, the text highlights this brilliant secondary indicator that relies entirely on wildlife observation.
Oh, right, the natural predators.
Yeah. If you suddenly notice increased activity from birds pecking at the soil, or, you wake up to find that skunks, raccoons, or moles have been digging shallow holes across your yard overnight, you need to pay attention.
I have actually seen that before in my neighborhood. It looks like someone took a miniature rototiller to the turf.
Yep.
Just chunks of dirt and grass flipped over everywhere. You think it's vandals, but it's raccoons.
And those animals are not destroying your lawn maliciously. They are hunting. They possess auditory and olfactory senses capable of detecting those hidden grubs just below the surface.
They can smell them through the dirt.
They can smell them, they can hear them moving, and they are tearing through the weakened turf to harvest them. So the animals tearing up your yard are actually delivering a vital piece of diagnostic information.
They are signaling that the saboteurs are active in the soil profile.
Exactly.
Nature's pest control is basically sending you a giant, messy signal. But surviving that underground phase dictates the next stage of the attack.
The transition.
Right. Because if a homeowner misses the spongy grass and just ignores the foraging raccoons, those grubs eventually mature. And the moment they grow wings and break the surface, they completely abandon the roots. The covert underground operation ends, and the airborne assault begins.
The destruction shifts from the subterranean foundation up to the visible foliage. Their entire dietary preference changes upon maturation.
They emerge as adult Japanese beetles. The source describes them as metallic green, almost like little shiny jewels.
They are actually quite striking to look at.
They are, but their behavior is catastrophic for a landscape. They take to the skies and immediately seek out the leaves of your ornamentals, your shrubs, and your trees.
They transition from severing the plant's water supply to destroying its photosynthetic capacity.
And the brief uses a really specific, chilling term for their eating habits. It calls it skeletonizing.
It's a very accurate term.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because they consume all the soft plant tissue between the structural veins of the leaf. If you try to picture what skeletonizing looks like, imagine a beautiful stained glass window. You have all these vibrant, colorful panes of glass held together by a rigid, intersecting lead frame. What these beetles do is meticulously break every single piece of colored glass out of the window, leaving absolutely nothing behind but the bare, empty metal grid.
Just the framework.
Yes, that is what your prized rose bushes look like when they were done with them, just these ghost leaves hanging on the branches.
It is a systematic defoliation. And without that soft leaf tissue, the plant can no longer convert sunlight into energy.
So it starves the top half of the plant now.
Precisely. It places massive physiological stress on the tree or shrub, leaving it highly susceptible to disease and winter damage. But, and this is key, the feeding mechanism itself isn't even the most dangerous part of this airborne phase.
Right, because the Propetus mentions pheromones play a huge role here. And this is fascinating because it's not just a few bugs having a quiet meal. When these adult beetles find a premium food source, a healthy ornamental cherry tree, they begin releasing chemical signals into the air.
The aggregation pheromones?
Yes. These pheromones essentially act as a highly targeted dinner bell. They aren't just calling for mates. They are broadcasting that a prime feeding ground has been located, which attracts even more beetles from the surrounding area.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the chemical communication turns a localized yard issue into a beacon for the entire neighborhood.
Wow.
These pheromones can travel significant distances on wind currents. A beetle flying hundreds of yards away can detect that chemical trail using its antenna and navigate directly to your tree.
So they are actively calling in reinforcements to accelerate the defoliation.
They engineer a compounding infestation. What starts as a handful of isolated beetles rapidly scales into a swarming mass. I mean, the mathematical progression of the damage becomes exponential within a matter of days.
Which means you are suddenly fighting a simultaneous two-front war on your property.
Right.
You have the adult beetles actively summoning an army to strip the leaves above, and those same adults are dropping eggs back into the soil to ensure the next generation of grubs is ready to attack the roots below.
A perfect cycle.
So how do you actually break a cycle that is that well designed? Because according to Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, stopping this isn't about brute force. You can't just spray chemicals indiscriminately. It is entirely a game of precision timing.
Timing is the single most critical variable in disrupting a multi-generational biological cycle. If you don't understand the developmental stages of the insect, your interventions will be completely ineffective.
The source is very clear on this trap. If you apply treatments to the lawn too early in the season, you miss the active feeding stage of the insect's life cycle.
You are essentially treating empty dirt.
Exactly. But if you treat too late, the physical damage to the root system is already done and the grass is already detached. And if you only focus your energy on killing the shiny green adults flying around the bushes, you are ignoring the grubs operating underground, ensuring the cycle just repeats next year.
This requires a deep dive into the specific biology of overwintering and soil temperatures.
Overwintering.
Yeah, so grubs survive the freezing winter months by burrowing deep into the soil profile, well below the frost line. They enter a state of dormancy. They only begin their upward migration back toward the grass roots when the soil temperature consistently hits roughly 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, I see. So if you put down a preventative chemical treatment in early spring, when the soil is only, say, 50 degrees, the grubs are still buried deep underground.
Exactly.
The chemical just sits on the surface, exposed to UV light and spring rains, and it completely degrades before the grubs ever come up to eat it.
The treatment window is incredibly narrow. You have to wait for the soil to warm enough to trigger the grubs' upward migration, but you must act before they have consumed enough root mass to destroy the turf.
That's a tight needle to thread.
It is a precise biological science. It's heavily dependent on tracking localized weather patterns and historical emergence data.
Which explains why the brief specifically singles out the state of North Carolina as being particularly vulnerable to this pest. I mean, the source title literally calls it North Carolina's most destructive lawn pest. The climate in that region acts like a custom-built incubator.
It really does.
North Carolina has this transition zone, climate warm, humid summers, consistent moisture, and a very long growing season.
The geographic alignment is a massive factor. The clay-heavy soils, common in parts of North Carolina, retain moisture exceptionally well, providing the perfect hydration levels for grub development.
Like a sponge.
Yeah. And furthermore, the mild winters mean the frost line doesn't penetrate deeply, resulting in extraordinarily high winter survival rates for those dormant grubs.
And then the extended warm season gives the adult beetles a massive window to feed, mate, and lay thousands of eggs before the temperatures drop again.
Everything aligns for them.
The environmental conditions perfectly overlap with the biological needs of both stages of the beetle's life cycle.
A longer growing season equals a longer window for exponential damage.
So, what does this all mean? I hear what you're saying about the roots and the pheromones and the exponential damage, but realistically, let's look at this from the perspective of a busy homeowner.
Okay, play devil's advocate.
Life is chaotic, right? You notice a few brown patches on the lawn. You see some skeletonized leaves on the roses. Is it really that urgent? Like, a few bugs eating a few leaves hardly seems like it justifies the cost and hassle of a professional lawn care program. Why can't I just take a wait-and-see approach? Maybe the weather will shift, or maybe the beetles will just move on to a tastier yard down the street.
This raises an important question because the desire to default to a wait-and-see approach is a very understandable human reaction. We want to believe nature will balance itself out without our intervention.
Right, it's bugs.
But according to the agronomic experts at Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, wait and see is arguably the most financially devastating mistake a property owner can make in this specific scenario.
Wait, more expensive than paying for targeted preventative treatments.
Exponentially more expensive. If you ignore a Japanese beetle infestation, you are not simply dealing with a temporary cosmetic issue. You are allowing the systematic physical destruction of the root zone.
The foundation.
Unchecked, those thinning brown areas turn into massive dead patches that possess zero ability to recover. You cannot revive a plant that has no vascular connection to the earth.
Because once the roots are gone, the turf is permanently dead.
The cascading effects are severe. Because the lawn's foundation is compromised, it becomes highly vulnerable to secondary environmental threats. Extreme summer heat, minor droughts, and opportunistic turf diseases will easily wipe out whatever weakened grass remains.
This is a domino effect.
Exactly. What could have been managed with a localized, properly timed preventative treatment turns into the need for a complete wall-to-wall lawn renovation.
Oh, wow. You are talking about bringing in heavy equipment to tear out the dead turf, executing massive reseeding or sodding projects, and performing extensive soil remediation just to repair the damage.
The labor and material costs of replacing an entire landscape completely dwarf the cost of proactive maintenance.
Trying to save a few dollars by ignoring the early warning signs basically guarantees you will be spending thousands later to rip it all out and start over.
The economics heavily favor early scientific intervention. That is why professional care is strongly emphasized in the source material.
Because of that narrow window.
Right. Timing the life cycle of an insect that spends half its existence hidden beneath the soil is not a guessing game you can win on a Sunday afternoon. Professions utilize soil thermometers, monitor moisture indices, and track regional pest emergence models to hit that exact biological window where the treatment will actually intercept the grubs.
You have to strike when the saboteur is moving through the corridors.
Well said.
Which is a window the average homeowner simply can't see because the entire movement is happening an inch below the soil surface. This has been a genuinely eye-opening look at the complex biological warfare happening just outside our front doors.
It demands a shift from reactive observation to proactive understanding of the ecosystem.
Absolutely. So, to summarize the core insights we've pulled from the Lawn Pride of North Charlotte brief, the Japanese beetle executes an absolute masterclass in two-stage destruction.
A very effective strategy.
They destroy the foundation of your lawn, the roots, when you aren't looking, tricking you into thinking you just need to adjust your sprinkler system. And then once they have compromised the ground, they take to the air and systematically strip the photosynthetic engines off your plants right in front of you.
While utilizing airborne pheromones to call in a swarm to finish the job.
Defeating them is entirely a matter of precision timing based on soil temperatures, not just throwing random chemicals at the yard. As the source material so perfectly warns, when it comes to this pest, what you don't see can hurt your lawn the most.
You really have to respect the sophistication of the adversary.
I am certainly never going to look at a spongy brown patch of grass or a shiny green bug the same way again.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the mechanics of the Japanese beetle, I want to leave you with a broader, somewhat philosophical thought to mull over the next time you are out tending to your garden.
Okay, I'm listening.
We established early on that this insect's absolute favorite target, the environment it requires to achieve maximum population density, is a perfectly watered, deeply green, heavily fertilized lawn with soft, abundant roots.
The quintessential dream yard.
The suburban ideal. Which poses a fascinating question regarding modern landscaping. Does our relentless, resource-intensive pursuit of the aesthetically perfect, deep green yard actually engineer the exact, highly fragile biological conditions required for its own total destruction?
Wow.
Are we unwittingly terraforming our own properties to serve the saboteurs?
That's a wild thought.
Yeah.
We might be building the ultimate trap for ourselves by trying to control nature too tightly. Keep an eye on what is happening beneath the surface, and we will see you on the next deep dive.
Thank you for listening to the Pain in the Grass podcast, sponsored by Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, Huntersville, your go-to name in turf care for homeowners and businesses seeking beauty, quality, and reliability, powered by family and fueled by passion. Until next time, make sure to take care of that pain in the grass.